So I think there are like a few things which I have discussed in the article, and basically is the problem with education and job. Education, like people get themselves educated for various kind of reasons, and job is just one part of it. But I think that job is one basic part which should be in a right condition. Otherwise, it just because the people get too worried. Like if the job part is not okay, then their mental sanity is not there. So any kind of thing you want to do with jobless people is not going to be very satisfactory, or success will not. I think that success will be hampered. Like in whatever thing you want to do with people who are always worried about job, then it's not going to succeed in a way that we expect it to. So I think that is one part which is very important now. Like I know that education, there are various different things that uh, that we do. Like education serves various purposes. But one part is this job part. So I have shown that a job can be divided into two parts. One is the organized sector jobs, and the second part is the unorganized sector. Or organized sector is basically licensed organizations, and unorganized sector consists of jobs which are like not licensed. And the organized sector are registered and they pay GST, but the unorganized sector are self-employed, and they are not into any kind of registration or GST, paying GST and things like that. So we always talk about organized sector jobs because they are like high paying and glamorous. But if we really consider the number of organized sector jobs, then that number is very small. Like if we consider all the people who are working in India, which is the working population, India has a population of 1.3 billion. And among that, around 37 to 38% is the working population, which actually is about 487 million. And among these, a very small percentage of people are working in the organized sector, which is 6%. And most of the working population is in the unorganized sector, uh, But we seldom talk about unorganized sector job. Mostly, even with underprivileged children, we usually talk about the organized sector jobs and encourage them to go to university and get good jobs. And so the organized sector is getting filled up. It's a small portion of the job market. It's saturated, and lots of people are disappointed. Like they go for that organized sector job, and after they fail, they try a few years appearing for various type of competitive exams and fail, and then they come back to the unorganized sector. So I think that this is becoming problematic. Like why shoot for organized sector jobs first, and when you fail, come back disappointed, and then try to work things out in the unorganized sector, which you have not given much thought before. And it takes long time. Like I will show you later that I have also talked in the article that Azim Premji University have found out that mostly like fresh graduates coming out from universities are unemployed, and it takes long time for them to get into the job market. And that is because I think that is because they are not prepared, that they spend a long time in education and they did not give much thought to the unorganized sector employment initially. And after they fail to get into the organized sector, they come back and they are at a loss at that point of time, because a lot of time has passed and they are still trying to understand what the unorganized sector job actually means and how can they get accommodated in this sector. So I mean, it's like back to square one and then trying all over again, trying to find a job in the organized sector, in the unorganized sector. So so I will discuss like what are my ideas about that. But so that was the basic thing I want to discuss, is that shooting for the organized sector jobs, not getting it, getting demoralized, and then returning back to the sector. A lot of time is wasted, energy is wasted. So can we think about something like right at the school level, so that you become prepared? Like underprivileged children are mostly uh, like uh, it is the underprivileged children are expected more that they will come into the unorganized sector. So is it possible that in the during the school years and college years we think more about the unorganized sector and prepare for it, and then work in the unorganized sector for some time? And if you are really interested after that to go into the organized sector, then that is fine. So this is not about like demotivating anybody to go into the unorganized sector, into the organized sector. It is about like a stepwise thing. You first go into the unorganized sector job, which is considerably relatively easier than the organized sector. If you do well there, spend a few years, and then you can move on to the organized sector, and if you get an opportunity there, or to higher education. So here what I'm going to talk about is mostly like, I am not saying whatever you're doing, you stop doing that. I will not say that the education that you are having with English, science, whatever you are doing, that you stop all those kind of things. Not that, but what I'm trying to say is like, pay more attention to the unorganized sector much before, like in the school or college level, so that you become prepared. Like if there is like you go stepwise. You first try to get a simpler job at, say, which pays less, maybe paying less, there is less payment, and which may not be as glamorous an organized sector job, but get that first, and then if you get an opportunity, move into the organized sector. So here I have shown that the number of graduating students, like all types of, like from PhD to PhD, master's program, students who are involved in master's, PhD, undergraduate, postgraduate, and then diploma, certificate, and integrated courses. All together, the enrollment for this type of students is going up every year. And there are like 30 million average, on average 35 million students are passing out of the institutes in India, which is a big number, but not as big if you consider the number of students entering primary education. I will show you later that the number of students that enter primary education is around 229 million, which is much higher. And then there is a high dropout of children in the school and in the senior secondary high school stage. And there is even further drop in the number of students in the university stage. And then when they enter the job market, organized job market, it is around 35 million. So which is around, this 35 million is actually around 15% of primary students who are entering the school system. So even 35 million is a big number compared to the jobs that are available. Here we show that from 1975 to 2010, the number of workers that are working in the private and public sector, the combined jobs have never crossed 30 million. It's kind of increased till 1995, the public sector jobs, and then they started decreasing. And I was just trying to estimate, like if you take this rate, so how much loss of jobs will be there at 2020? It's around, say, 3 to 4 lakhs jobs, like government jobs have been lost since 1995. Although the Azim Premji University says that the job loss is around 9 million in the last few years. And that includes not only government sector jobs, all other jobs. Now 9 million loss of jobs in the last few years. But from here, we get that around 3 lakh to 4 lakh jobs have been lost during the last few years. So from here, like the way these graphs look, it doesn't look very, optimistic. So I don't think that the number will go to much higher levels in the future. It's kind of stagnated. So in this kind of situation, what do you do? Like, because jobs are stagnating and maybe even coming down. So the question is like, I don't see much hope in the organized sector and public and private sector. And so I think that the opportunity lies mostly in the unorganized sector, which is 94% of the total workforce. The unorganized sector jobs are like not that high paying, and the working conditions are not also very good. But still, I think that if we can do something, we can do in the unorganized sector, because there is less possibility of having anything done in the organized sector, as we are not, changing organized sector is going to be very difficult. A lot of people are trying. And there is reason, we can understand that there are some reasons why things are not working. And most of us, we know the kind of things that bug the organized sector. It's like, if something is good, then it's going to grow. So there is some problems, in the organized sector, which is why is it not growing and why is it stagnant? And so I will not pay much attention in this talk into the organized sector, because I think it is kind of like stagnating. And if we consider the unorganized sector, then there can be some hope in the future. So the organized sector actually consists of two, public and private, and I have shown that 3.6 and 2.4 are the different percentages. So in the next slide, I would like to show you the unemployment rate. I already have talked in the article that the unemployment rate among the educated people are high. So this is like data from the Center of Sustainable Development at Azim Premji University, and they have given this data, and which shows that the unemployment rate is very high in the graduate level, postgraduate level. A lot of people, are unemployed. And the unemployment rate is defined as the percentage of unemployed workers in the total labor force. The total labor force consists of all employed and unemployed people within an economy. So that's we see like education is not just not helping in getting jobs. Look, if we see the not literate, there is a gradual increase in the unemployment rate as we go from not literate to primary, middle, secondary, higher secondary, certified courses, diploma, graduate, and postgraduate. So this is just, I wanted to show you the second slide. In the third slide, so one thing I have discussed in the article, like I don't see much hope from the government. And there are, I think, I got some comments that, I think Rajiv wrote that why do you think that why don't you have hope in the government? And why are we trying to oppose the government? Something like that. But I am not saying that this is an opposition to government. I think that the unemployment problem is too big for government to handle. I have reasons for that. I think that the government is unable to handle is not in the capacity to handle the unemployment situation. And the reasons are, I think that for to do something in the unemployment issue, government, whoever wants to solve this problem has to have three things. Like one is motivation first, very important. Second is resources. And in resources, you need to have people and you need to have money to implement various projects by which we can try to address the unemployment situation. But I show here, like I was trying to figure out, I already have shown in the article that the government employs very less, 3.8%, 3.6%, I think I showed in my article. And I was trying to compare, like, if 3.8% is really like big or small, what about the other countries? So I see that the International Labor Organization has given this, there are like hundreds of countries, and I was shocked to see that India is the lowest with 3.8% of the workforce as government employees. All other uh, countries have higher workforce, government workforce. And these are only a few countries I have put in this chart. But if you just open up International Labor Organization, just type in Google, you will get hundreds of companies, hundreds of countries. And India is the extreme lowest. It was a shock to me to see that only 3.8% of the government workforce is employed in the government. And even Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, I did not get data for Pakistan and Nepal. Those were not there. But even our neighboring countries like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka has more people in the government. So the government workforce is too low, to actually handle any kind of thing. I mean, I think that we are getting this protection, international protection and services with water, electricity, and all this is amazing, considering the amount of workforce that the government has, and it's still coming down. So that is one thing that I don't think we have enough workforce to actually manage various government things, like various services that the government provides. And it is like 1.3% of the total population. 3.8% is of the working population, and 1.3% is the of total population. So 1.3 into 3, if you do, it will be like 3.9. So 3.9% of people, 3.9 people in 400. Like if you do it, say 300 and 3.9. So 3 people in like 300 people. Can 3 people take care of 300 people? That was the basic kind of calculation I was doing in my head. The government provides all types of services, from professor jobs to government bank employees to railway staff to steel industries and all this kind of stuff. Now only 3 people per 300 people. So that's kind of low. So that was one thing I want to say here. The next thing I want to say, that the government is not also doing good with money. That in the last 4 or 5 years, there is fiscal deficit, which is the shortfall in government's income and compared with the spending. So they have overshot spending by around 4%, in the last 4 or 5 years. So it shows that the government does not have enough money. But even like so, from the perspective of like people and money, government is not doing well. And still, I think that the resources are not that important. If you have real motivation, then the resources will come, like people and money. So I will not put too much emphasis on these two things. Also, I think that they are kind of low. But because motivation you cannot quantify, right? So I will keep it to you. So if you really can you really tell me that the government is motivated enough to solve the unemployment problem? I mean, this thing is going on for a long time, and I see the Prime Minister is trying, like there are talks, and all the time about solving the unemployment problem. But do you think that the Prime Minister is excited? But what about the people? I mean, the government employees are the one who is going to implement the strategies. If there is a policy for solving the unemployment issue, then the Prime Minister and his cabinet ministers will do the policy thing, but implementation will lie on the people. Now, do we really think that the Indian officials are motivated enough, to ensure that the implementation is done correctly? No, I'm not very optimistic. So I think so. Although I'm saying that these are the problems that I find with the government, that the government may not be in a position to actually solve this problem. But I think that the government policies are good, even though these things are up to my expectation or expectations to the of the people, but the policies are good. Government usually, like when they try to solve a problem or tackle an issue, they would find the right people, like those are handpicked, and they make good policies. But when it comes to implementation, I mean, things don't measure up. That is the kind of thing. So, like, this is the basic background which I wanted to talk about. Now I would like to talk more about what I think will be good for Asha to do. So at this point of time, do you have any questions? I'll go to the next slide about what
Hi, hi Ajay, Padmanabha here. So one question I have, looking at your curve for unemployment percentage, that the more educated you are, the higher chance is there to be unemployed, right? So it comes from 2% to 16%. But if you are among the 86% or 85% in the graduate level, then you will earn better salaries. Is that a, like, I'm just saying, people, like, motivation money always works well. So I'm trying to understand, if people study more, if they have better education, higher education, is there a correct
Yeah,
correlation,
sure.
direct correlation with the salary?
Yeah, I think that, like, if you are educated less, it will be hard to get high salary.
Okay.
So education is directly connected to high salary, you know. But
Okay.
what I am saying here is, like, we are trying to find a solution for the majority, like, as a
Yes.
policy, there will be many students who would like to earn higher and would like to go for organized sector jobs. We don't have any problem for them. You can try, but, like, for us, do we create a policy for people who want to go high, or do you want to create a policy for people that will benefit the majority of the student population?
Yes, even many teachers are more motivated to have 1 out of 100 to become a doctor or a teacher,
Yeah.
rather than 90, the rest 99. That means usually in our classes also we have seen teachers only go with like the front row students who
Yeah.
are always listening and doing well, and they want them to be stars and get very good marks and shine, but
Yeah.
they usually avoid the rest 97 out of
Yeah, I
100,
mean,
right?
that
So
has been the usual practice,
yeah, I mean,
for
that's
us.
is it a culture driven problem, or it is just like the role model driven culture? I don't know. Means is it something deep
So I
inside
think
our
that,
culture that everybody wants to be a hero or the shining person? Nobody wants to shoot the middle, the simple living, just okay salary kind of jobs. What's the problem there?
I think that the history is of neglect. That is what India has been doing for a long time. Now we have a lot of people who are living below poverty line, and the most of the our policies, like, they are good, but they are not implemented. The implementation was always in the for people who are privileged. I mean, that is what I feel with my experience. So this is a culture of neglect. There is no doubt about it. So we really don't care about people who are falling behind. It is more about the people at the top. And people at the top, various kind of things are there. The one important problem with the education is the testing problem. I mean, testing is a diagnostic culture, and it is important to have a testing culture. But do we want to have a dominant culture which is testing culture? The culture in education today, the dominant culture in education today is the testing culture. If everybody is, like, always testing scores and all these kind of things. And so when you go into the testing culture, you are always preparing for the tests, and people are always becoming master test takers, from starting from school to university, and then going beyond into the for organized sector jobs. It's all testing, testing, testing. So you become a master test taker. Now, how is that helping in the real world?
Mm.
So I think that we always focus on like the bright students, but who are the bright students? The bright students are the top test takers. Top test takers, because you find out the best through testing systems. And now we have to consider, is the test taking champion really the person who can help society? Like, are they really the people we want in the administrative system or in the public system, or where there is service required? Like,
Yeah, because their motivation is to shine, right? Their motivation is not to help others. So now that's the thing. There is a huge difference in the job. The job they take is to help others, and the way they go there is to, we are all more. I think the ones who shined are the ones who are, I think, will think about themselves more and more practical, right? So there is a difference there.
Yeah. So I think that, if we at Asha, there will always be more focus on top performance. There will always be more focus. But should we consider, like, should we make all our policies for the top performers or creams or the outliers basically? I think the policies should be made for the majority benefit of the majority students.
Mm.
So that is why I think that, like, I did this schematic. Like, this is our existing system, where from 10th to 12th class and then to university, we always encourage students to be top, go to the top, take the best job, So that is what we do. And when they fail, I already have shown that 94% are in the unorganized sector. So no matter what you do, 94 people will always fail to get the organized sector job, because there is no position, like there is only 6 position per 100.
Mm.
So 94% of the people will always fail, and they will come back to the unorganized sector here. And the top six is going on. So this, I think, is a very waste, like there is a lot of wastage of energy and effort is going here. So can we do it like this, that we first ask them to go and try the vocational training or unorganized sector jobs first, 10 study in the 10th, 12th, and prepare in between. I'll discuss more about what I want to do here. But can we ask them, or encourage them to shoot for the unorganized sector jobs first? And if you work here for a few years, if you really think that you are interested to go to the university and for organized sector, you are free to do so. But if you do this, then you will not be in that kind of a depressed mentality. Like, oh, I don't know what to do now, because you are always thinking of this from 10th standard to from the bottom to the top university level. They are always thinking of government jobs or top jobs, and they never really spend any time thinking about what they are going to do if they fail. So this is here the depression sets in. Like, they try for a few years and nothing works, and they think that, oh, I'm lost now, so I have to come here. And then, according to the Azim Premji University statistics, most people who are fresh out of college or university, they are like waiting for a long time, because at that point of time, they are getting acclimatized to the unorganized sector. And it will take some time to learn that, to get contacts, and then enter into the job. So there's a huge waiting time over here, and not and I think that the most disadvantageous part is the depressing mentality. Here the person is like really in bad state, that they really can't make it, they are a failure, and then they have to come back. But this thing can be avoided if we do this way. Like, okay, you have to get a job first. It may be a low paying job, but you have to get a job first, get settled, you learn something out there. And then if you are really think that if you want to make it to the top level, you are free to do so. So this is what I'm kind of proposing, that if you want to get rid of this thing, because anyway, 94 people is going to fail, in 100. So why not make a preparation beforehand, So my suggestion is that from the 8th standard onwards, we try to encourage people to, look for something. You are studying, that is fine, but then the teacher, everyone, they try to motivate people to do some kind of practical work to learn the community. I mean, one important part, I think, which is very disadvantageous in this whole setup is the testing mentality, which keeps people, like kind of bondage in this education system. Like the testing system is so severe that students don't spend time anywhere else. Like if you are not studying for your exams, then people, everybody is going to shout at you, and they are not going out, not interacting with the community. So as we can see, that 94% of the jobs are in the unorganized sector. Unorganized work is mostly about the community. So if you don't go out, if you don't know what the community is, if you don't know what the problems are the opportunities. You solve a problem, you will get a job over there. So if you are not doing that, it's a huge waste of time. And not only from a job perspective, most people are not getting any idea of what their community is, which is a big loss. I mean, the first thing you go out of your home and you interact is the community, right? If you don't know what your community is and you're studying all the time, and they're trying all sorts of examinations, and after some time you see that I am at a loss, I don't know what to do, and I am trying to understand the community after like failing in several exams, and it will take a long time. And even then, like it's kind of a reverse process, which is not benefiting the student community at all. So my suggestion is here, like from 8th standard, 6th, 7th standard to 8th standard, we start encouraging people to get into the vocational training mode. I mean, another system is that is mindset. Once they enter the universities, they think it is beneath them to work for something which is a community work or unorganized sector work. They would like to go for the office job. The office job is like the holy grail of Indian job system. Now, if you are not sitting in an office, doing that kind of, and in AC is better, it's not, the job is not worth doing. That kind of mentality is very detrimental to the student system. So the university system is creating this type of problems. So if we can do, here that you encourage them, so they get, they start doing something into the community, they learn more about it, and they understand that it is not demeaning to work on the unorganized sector. And if you later on, you can always go to the top levels. But there is no shame in doing something that the community people are doing. Now, ultimately, if you fail, you have to come here only. So this mentality.
Okay, so sorry, I think Ajay, you can finish your slides. Just wanted to ask one thing. Did you study the way it is done in German, school system? Because I live there and I have asked a bunch of people how they do it. So usually in class 5 or class 8, the teachers give a recommendation to the parents that this person should go in the vocational training course, and this person should go in the university, like you are proposing, right?
Yeah,
And
I think that is what I suggested in the article, that there should be clarity. This is where the clarity comes in, that there should be really people will be just trying to talk to students, counseling them, trying to figure out who is set for what kind of job, like,
yes.
because there is no guidance to students. These people, like, always they are trying to go to the university, and then
Yes.
when they fail they will come back.
But my only problem is that in Germany there is a possibility to come back to the university system. You just need
Yeah,
one more year.
yeah,
Let's say somebody is doing really good in the Royal School or the the vocational trainings ways, and
yeah,
then you can go into the university system again.
yeah,
But currently in India, I there is a diploma, right, that starts right after class 10.
yeah.
But if you go into diploma, that's it. You are in the diploma, like for rest of your life. I do you think you can, if somebody does finish the diploma, they can also go back to, let's say, do their engineering? No,
Yes,
right?
yes. In Tamil Nadu, you can do that. This
Okay.
here. In Tamil
Okay,
Nadu.
you can do that. So if you get a job, I mean, so I and how many, Balaji, do you know how many people, how many students actually go in the diploma after class 10 and how many go in the university?
No, I
Like,
don't have the statistics, but I have a good number of friends who have done that. Who have been to
okay.
a diploma. Only that, instead of 2 years and then 4 years, if you go through a diploma, it's 3 years and then 3 or 4. I don't know, but for engineering, it's 4 years again.
Yeah, I think that from here, some of the people are doing it,
Mhm.
but they are doing it on their own. It's like
Right, right.
not
And
much
and
guidance
if
from
it
our
is,
part
and
to
there's a lot
counsel
of
them.
pride involved in all of these things, because the teachers will always say, oh, these are the best people, they will get the best
Yeah, it's
class.
always the
And
discussion of best things,
yeah, that
not
is
the
a
discussion
problem.
of what you are going to do if things don't work out. That is one big problem. I mean, the best
Yes,
thing is
but the
always
backup
good.
plan, the people, most people, if the
If you can become
97%
an
is the
IS
backup plan,
officer,
nobody,
thumbs
yeah.
up to you. But what if you can't make it? If there is no support system after that, and it's like the student has to do all the work by himself or herself if things don't work out.
And do you think, Ajay, that 90, like let's say the students know that there is a 94% chance that they will land up in an
Yeah, I
unorganized.
think these statistics are not told to them. I mean, by clarity, I meant this, that let
Mhm.
them have the full picture. I mean, in the
Yes.
newspapers, you will always see railway is in 90,000 jobs this year. Some companies giving 1 lakh job, 2 lakh job. What is 90,000, 2 lakh compared to the working population?
Hmm.
90, if you consider the working population, that is 37 million. So if you convert it to lakhs, only 1% is 48 lakhs. If you want to give jobs to 1% of the working population, that is 48 lakhs. What does 90,000 mean here? It's nothing. So there is no clarity. They give, if somebody is giving 90,000, 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 20 lakh jobs, people think that that is going to solve the employment problem and everything is over. But they are not getting this idea that those jobs does not mean even 1%. And they are not going to solve the employment problem. So this is a half-baked picture that people are getting. And I mean, that is how it works. So giving the complete picture, even if not complete, a comprehensive picture is important. That this is what is where you are. If you fail, these are the things that you can do. If you pass, then very good. Go and do the best job possible. So that is important. So here I want to say that although I am criticizing the government for their limitations, I do feel that government policies are good. And one of the policy which was done in 2018 is this by Professor Rajneesh Jain, Secretary of UGC. And he is said, and this is the mandate. Quality mandate means a mandatory law that social and industry connect for every institution should happen. Every institution should at least adopt 5 villages for exchange of knowledge for the overall socio-economic betterment of the village communities. Training students, these things are also there. Promote society industry such that at least two-thirds of the students engage in socially productive activities during their period of study in the institutions. So government is encouraging, they have made it mandatory by year 2022 that all universities should be at least adopting 5 villages, and then students should be involved, engaged in those kind of interactions. This is, I think, is a very good policy, because if you want students to be aware of the community and the jobs, they need to go out, you know. And this, if you interact with villages, understand their problems, and then these ideas will crop up into your mind that what are the problems they are facing, and then what kind of jobs, you know, I can serve the community in certain way and I can get jobs in that way. So that is how the whole thing is going to work. But I am not very optimistic about the implementation. So I think that ASHA, even though we are a small organization, we are good in implementing with the help of our project partners. We may not be a big organization, but we are better in implementation than government. So can we take the best policies of the government and try to implement in our own small ways? That is the one of the ideas, because I think that this is important, that we don't want to fight with the government, but we know that government is poor in implementation. So can we take those good policies and try to implement them with our own project partners? So this, I think we can do it, even though this is for the universities, but I think this is important for all students, because community is the opportunity. So can we send our students, you know, like implement this type of things, or encourage our project partners to implement these things, so that students actually will have a better understanding of the community and the job sector. It is not only about the job, it is also for their mental, you know, like because of the too much stress in education, if they interact with the community, it will be beneficial, not only for their job, but also for their overall health, mental health and everything. And so that is one of my suggestions. Is this is one thing. And the other thing I want to say is that vocational skill, I told you, I've talked about vocational skill. Vocational skill is good, but I think vocational skilling is only one part of the solution. Okay. After 5-6 years, it will be the same thing. Everybody is doing vocational training and nobody is getting jobs. So vocational training is going to end up in the same way like education. So the other part is who is going to give jobs. You know, like skilling is not enough. So here I think that it is important for us to encourage the entrepreneurs. Like entrepreneurs means all these people who are working in the unorganized sector, you know, like the carpenter who employs 5-10 people, the farmer who employs 5-10 people for their own work. They are the people who, I mean, we kind of try to downplay their achievement, but if you see that they have achieved such an important feat, like to employ 90% of the people in the government probably will never be able to do, or the private sector. So these are the people who are like Indians don't have anyone to go to. They will be looking for jobs with these people only. So is it possible that we try to develop these kind of entrepreneurs? Because at ASHA, I mean, we kind of work with education, and we might think that this is not our job to go into entrepreneurship. But actually, I don't see any other way how India can benefit. If these people cannot be uplifted, then there is no way that people can, like, not only education, everything will suffer. Because 487 million, 90% people are engaged in this kind of work. And so they look up to the people who are employing them. Who are employing them? These common people. So I think that we really have no choice in this matter. If we want India to prosper and if we want students to prosper, we really have to pay attention to the employers in the unorganized sector. And that is what I think is going to be like the next policy, which I think I would suggest is trying to figure out how we can improve their economic conditions and also the student community along with it.
Yeah, can I have a couple of things? Can I speak
Yeah,
now?
sure.
Yeah, thanks Ajay for the wonderful presentation. 2 points I think I sent you in email. I would like to reiterate again. That is, first thing is employment is also a function of remuneration and not just education. There's also a dimension of remuneration to employment that we need to be discussing. We're discussing employment. Second thing is, there are more than just getting employed. There are other dimensions towards education which we cannot overlook at. There's education is not just about getting an employment. So that's 2 points I want to reiterate. In addition, when we discuss employment, this is a complex topic when it comes to a country like India. And you're right in what the statistics that you presented, that organized sector is lowest and there's a huge unorganized sector that's available in India. But you have to remember that, when you discuss employment in the unorganized, a large part of it has a very intricate relationship with caste system in India. And this is something that we cannot overlook. It's not something very easy. Now, what you are suggesting, the vocational training was introduced in 1952 by Rajaji in Tamil Nadu. It was called Kula Kalvi Thittam. So, which is basically to say that, every child will have a few hours of the schooling. He or she will be spending it in the family profession. So if somebody is somebody's father is a barber, then he will be getting trained in the barber. But at that time, Tamil Nadu is one of the earliest states to start with the social justice. So people opposed it, saying that this is inherently casteist, and it only tells that people who belong to a certain caste will continue in the same profession. And that is not the role of education, and hence people said that this is not the right way of moving forward. Also suggesting vocational training. Again, vocation has a very intricate relationship with remuneration.
Yeah.
Today, let's say profession like barber.
Yeah.
About 10 years back, people are not very fancy about taking barber as a profession. Okay? The barber's son would have actually gone and done some engineering or got some job, moved on. But when the number of barbers reduces, the demand-supply equation, okay? And now there's a criticality that there may be a demand for barber, and you're not going to get a haircut done anything less than 300 rupees. And it makes a very remuneration improves, and then it makes the work more meaningful. Recently, in Tamil Nadu, there was a job posting open for a sanitary inspector, and there were even postgraduates who were applying for the job, because it's only a question of demand and supply. So this is something that I want to emphasize, and this is not so easy area where we can get in and work at a
I understand what you are saying. Like one thing is that the unorganized sector, the status of job is not good, payment is not good. So there is a reason why people are not preparing for unorganized sector jobs. Like everybody wants to be the officer. Why do you think so? It is because of the status and pay. And so here I want to suggest you, this is what I'm trying to say. Like unorganized sector, can we improve the conditions, like working conditions? Like most of you have been to US, like most of you study in the outside, studied and worked in the first world countries. So think about a carpenter there and think about a carpenter or a barber in India. Like they are doing same kind of job, but think about the kind of status they enjoy. I mean, the jobs may not be high ranking, but there is a heaven hell difference of lifestyle between a carpenter there in US and an Indian carpenter? Is there, it is not difficult to find out that they travel in SUVs, go marketing in Walmart or even like what Walmart or whatever shop, like where even rich people are going. So there is some kind of a standard even with small ranking jobs. I think this is an important part which we want to think about. Like our jobs, why are there, even they are low ranking, why is it not rising in status? Can we do something in by which the status can be raised?
That has a link to the caste, right? It's not that easy that we can
Yeah, so that is
change it.
This is what I want to propose here. Is like I want to propose here is to form a group of students, volunteers, who will do research on the unorganized sector, and research will involve finding out like where the unorganized sector is going. That the payment, whatever you are saying, the status payment, demand supply, all this, like you can't just go on and do something there. There, like every organization has a research and development wing, every good organization. And I think ASHA should have one. Like education, Pratham is doing very good work in the education sector. And as we are seeing that the vocational training and unemployment and all these things are linked up in the unorganized sector, can we set up a system of research work by volunteers? And there can be, like, this is what I want to propose, is dividing the country into 3-4 parts and having teams of students, recruiting teams of ASHA volunteers and students who will do research on the unorganized sector. For us, we know, like if I ask you where the organized sector jobs are going, you will say in 1 minute that that artificial intelligence and data analytics and all these things are popular choice. But that is not true in case of unorganized sector. People don't know what happens in the unorganized sector, where is it going. So there needs to be some kind of a research which needs to be put in this sector. Is such a big sector. And students will be more interested in doing this kind of jobs because they like to do research analysis, like interviews. Here, if we set up a system of students who will go and interview various, they choose a specific area and then interview various people in that area, like good carpenters, good barbers, good goldsmith, good social worker, good teachers, and then and they will blog about them, they interview them, shoot videos, and then a group of ASHA volunteers will do research work on all those blogs, and they will figure out, like who are the best people, where the job is going, and what can be done to improve their condition. And what we can do is the ASHA volunteers can choose like 100 accomplished people, felicitate them for the work they have done, like this kind of people, and then figure out if we can help at least say 20-25 of them with some kind of funds to build their business. And in return, we ask them to train a few students in their craft. So that is how the education will be linked. And we'll do a very good service by felicitating people who are the real workers and who have been neglected by the society and whose help we need. So this is one kind of idea I'm proposing, that we understand the importance of the unorganized sector. It is important to do research on them before taking any kind of attempts. So a lot of people would like to do blogging, video editing, data analytics. We can have a few statisticians who can, figure out the questions that need to be asked to these people. Now, when the students go to these people, they will give them ask some questions, and based on them questions, we can run programs, statistical programs, to figure out how the their income is linked to various variables, like, for example, their training, their education level, their family background, their the amount of money they are putting into their business, their experience time, and figure out which of the variables are most important in promoting their income. And when you run these programs, you figure out from 100, 200, 300, 400 people, you will get those kind of trends. And then we can invest in those kind of variables to augment the income and to improve the conditions, working condition of these people, and also ask these people to train our students. And in this way, we can raise the status of job and also the income potential for not only these people, but also the students.
Yeah, again, I'm interfering. See, this has been done to some extent in the project that I'm associated with, Thulir, that is in Dharmaburi district. The project holders, both of them are architects, and they have trained some of the students in masonry, and also a little bit of other crafts related to the masonry, like steel work, woodwork, electrical, etc. But it's not something that what I would say. Yeah, it did help them to be a very skillful.
So I understand this is not Asha's work, like do these kind of things, but I think that this is kind of important now that things are transforming, and we need to do little differently things. So this is my proposition. Like if Asha volunteers would think about this kind of things, then I think that that will be beneficial, although it may not be very directly connected to the kind of work that we do. But ultimately, these all things will like tie up to the education part.
Ajay, as I understand that one is about the awareness, right? First phase is also about the awareness that if students know that it matters to think ahead, that not more like there is a 94% chance they will not get a office job.
Part.
Yeah, that's the clarity. And once the clarity is done, then you have to do a little more work on understanding, like how somebody could get a unorganized job, and how unorganized workers, not all of them are unhappy, some of them are doing well, so how they have reached there, and means kind of
so
also feature that part as well.
I'm interrupting you here. Here we need some role models, and this is why I asked about that kind of a research work, that we can really figure out by this kind of interviews that there are several people who actually are doing well. Whether it be a carpentry work, those kind of work which are,
like these days, Mukti usually has an, farmer of the month kind of thing.
Yeah, something like that.
Like features a farmer every month, and the way they have done something.
Exactly. How did they do it? How they are earning money, in this kind of jobs, because it's a competitive market. And then there are many people who are doing well in the unorganized sector. How did they do it? So that is important to figure out. So here I am in this figure. I show you that we have a lot of undergrads. This is, I did that the composition of student composition for higher education. This is for higher education. Lot of undergrad, about 80% people are like undergrads. And so these are the people, a lot of people are studying arts. Like 32% of people are studying arts. And I am like roaming in India for like 15 years now. I started when I was in the US. And I see that the people who are getting these BA, MA degrees are very poor. Not all, but mostly, that they can't draft a letter.
Yes, so, my question is, but then there is one issue that people take arts because it's the cheapest one to get a degree in.
Yeah, I mean, so.
And some of them actually look forward to being a teacher, right? So some of them do end up having a, like become a primary school teacher or something.
Yeah. But the quality is like very low. I mean, there is like lot of, I think I gave you some papers. People are finding out that 80%, 90% of graduates have no skill by which they can be employed. So that skill part, I think reward trust and everybody is trying to improve the quality. But like it is so poor that, I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Why do you spend so much time and you can't write a letter, This is like,
I think we are hitting at too many issues at one time.
yeah. So I'm trying to point out
Issue
here.
of quality of education applies at all levels. It's not just BA. You can talk about it's a much larger issue than what we're discussing here. Yeah.
So that is one thing. The other part I want to talk about is that a dropout is very high. So this is the 2014 to 2017 data shows that the primary level enrollment is 95%. 229 million students get enrolled, and then after 5 to 9, there is a huge dropout. 50% students are dropping out after the 5th standard. So 229 million will come down to 35 million after they graduate. So lot of education is not serving our best interest. Why is it that so many people are dropping out? I know that there is less opportunity, not many colleges and universities. I know that. But I also think that a lot of Indian people are rejecting the system because it is not what they don't find it useful.
But is it not that they are also joining the unorganized sectors?
Yeah, I mean,
because
so
they have to start earning
what I am saying here is, what I am proposing is they are doing the same thing. If you can't give them vocational education, they will do it themselves. I mean, they are dropping out means that they will be doing something like that. They are either be working in their farms with their family. Students, their parents will going to take their students out of school and put them into their own farm or whatever. So that is kind of vocational education. Like I don't support child labor, but I think that they don't have much option here. If they are like, if you want your student to earn some money, you have to take them out of school, because school is becoming too all-consuming with tests and everything. That if you continue in the system, a long time will be gone, and not much progress will be happening in the earning potential sector. So they understand this part, and the dropout in the primary and the secondary school is not new. This has been going on for a long time. It is only now that I am saying that the dropout in the higher education sector is happening, because the job was kind of secure before, but it is job for higher education students is not secure anymore. So there is dropout that is happening now, but the dropout with the primary student is continuing for a long time, many years. And so something is problematic. So it's not, we need to do something. It's not working the way it's expected.
I'm not sure if unemployment is a pretty new issue here. It's not like in the good old days, people who graduated are assured of jobs. So
yeah, the job was always critical.
Can I speak or just, okay, fine.
Yes, sure. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
See, it's not something that's unusual in terms of educated people not having jobs. It was there in the 70s, it was there in the 80s. I mean, there are even good old movies to talk about it. My dad himself, when he graduated as one of the 23 first-class graduates of BCom and from Madras University in 1974, he was also jobless for a few months. There's nothing unusual those days that they all had ready-made jobs. They figured out the eventuality, and the one good thing around those days was the increased public sector recruitment that happened in those days, the banks. So every generation had a certain organized sector absorbing some of the graduates, and that's how things have been moving. Now what has happened is, in terms of the employment opportunities created, there has not been any new sector that has come up in the last decade or so. The services boom that happened in the first decade of the 2000s, and then we didn't have any major employment generation boom that happened in the last years, and the government has consciously reduced the staff. Whereas, of course, this happened in many places, and that's where the whole thing has become critical. At the same time, they installed the capacity for educational thinking. For example, in Tamil Nadu, between 2007, 8, sorry, around 8, 9 onwards, there's been a substantial increase in the number of people clearing high school examinations. And this has nothing to do because they were all become very brilliant. No, it's very simple. Only if they graduate high school, they go to colleges, and the colleges are run by politicians. And the government incentivizes students enough to continue their education till the schooling and then go to college. Now, once they finish college, of course, they're all unemployed because they did not really do the kind of education that required for a college. It just happened. That's it.
Mhm.
So I don't think the issues could be different in different parts of the country, and I don't think we can generalize it with a few parameters. That's my view.
Yes, see the
I mean, also one thing I wanted to mention here, that people drop out at class 8 because it is no longer free, and that is one of the biggest issue why a lot of them drop out as well. If you ask them, till class 8, our RT kind of supports everything, and then suddenly they takes out, and usually the girls will drop out much more. Just looking at this picture here.
yeah, so dropping out was there, like this is not new, and the job problem was also there. I mean, this
Yeah.
is not something new. What is new is that the privileged section is feeling insecure. This like education actually meant that if you are going to get educated and get a professional degree or something, you will get a job. That was the kind of thing before, and so everybody wanted to get educated because education, like a few years back, 10, 15 years back, good education meant a sure job. Job security was there, like if you can get educated.
But it was difficult to get a good education. The number of people, I want to see the
Yeah,
statistics.
but
I think in 1970s, 80s, the number of people who are actually getting proper graduate degree was much less. And because as you can see, the public sector has not grown so much in last 25, 30 years. So the chance has reduced much more, because now it's easier to get a graduate degree, but it is more difficult to get a job
yeah, but what
in the
I want to
organized
say
sector.
here is that just because people are getting job through education, so we did not question education much before. Now we thought that okay, because there is this problem of there is not many colleges or not many universities. Our education system is fine. Like if you can get educated, if we can increase the infrastructure and everything and put everybody into colleges and universities, then everybody will get job. That was the kind of mentality. But now that even educated people are not getting jobs, then this has cropped up that the education system is not serving well, that there is something not working in the system. I mean, that is, I think, that the new thing which is coming out. Otherwise, we did not question much the education quality at this level before. So this is like this is my last slide, and the next what we are discussing here is like this is NSSO data, government data, and which actually shows that the dropout for male student was due to economic conditions, which is kind of we understand, and females drop out due to domestic activities. So this is, I copied this graph from the Live Mint. So I think that is the kind of thing I wanted to talk about, that even though we are into education, let's think something about what we can do for the mainstream, for the majority of the people. For the top quality of students, like everybody is worried and they try to do something for these top quality students. But the large bulk of students, that there should be a policy that it's not like if you fail, you do it on your own. But can we come up with a policy for the majority of students? Like we understand that there are not many jobs. So from beforehand in school and in school level, we start trying to sensitize teachers and students that these are the different options, and you may or may not succeed in these options. So what if you do if you fail in number one, if you succeed in number one, what do you do if you succeed in number two, if you fail in number two, like if you like these type of categories. And so that will bring in the clarity, and it will make students much more less stressed, that they will understand what the situation is, and having that clarity will improve the stress level, you know? And that will make education better. The clarity will make education better, that it's not like I don't know what to do if I lose the game of this job game, so if I have a backup plan or not, these kind of things. So I think that my slides are over, so we can discuss if you have more questions.
One thing I wanted to understand, Ajay, like in your proposal, how to, change. How to solve this problem, or at least trying to solve the problem. I'm just not able to understand how. Let's say if the awareness part is easy, straightforward, and then little bit discussion with the people, how they are dealing with the unorganized sector, how they are working with students to motivate them for. We can also do that with the non-profit partners. My only question is, like another things you suggested is that we should reach out to them, to the people from unorganized sector, and try to kind of focus on their stories and try to take those stories and try to do something with that, and also make them role models and try to motivate the students. I'm just not able to understand how we do that in a
Yeah, so
bigger scale. It means a small scale with some people with a small project and doing that and try to see how it works, is I understand. But I think if we really want to do across all our partners, then we need to have something that is also, like you do something and you need to know how to assess the, how success. You need to have a success factor. I am not able to understand how you will measure the success of anything in this domain.
yeah, so I mean, jobs, this problem is not an easy thing. Like a lot of people are thinking, but it's not working out. So it's not going to be easy. That we understand. But what can be done is starting at a smaller level. Like, okay, can we prioritize these projects which actually are looking into this kind of things? Like finding out which projects are working with the community. Like we know that many students are their projects where they have this system of government system. Somebody is president, somebody is prime minister, somebody is some minister for gardens and all those things. Like they work in their campus, and they have these people have take different kind of jobs, which is kind of a like give them a flavor of how to work in campuses in a team. So can we choose project partners which are actually working with outside with villages? So it is not only education they are providing in classes, but they are also going out and working in the community in some manner. So that if we try to look into those, we will get into the idea. Yes, sure.
I think, see, every project works with the community at the end of the day, right? I mean, we are supporting projects which largely work with the community. What specific area would you suggest?
Yes.
I mean, this is very general to say, yeah, like, all schools generally work with community. They exist because of community, right?
Yeah. So see here the government is suggesting that you adopt 5 villages for universities. Universities are big, they can do this kind of thing. Adopt 5 villages, every institution will adopt 5 villages and send students. I'm not sure how much implementation will be done, but that's a good idea for universities. So can we do similar kind of a thing at a smaller level? Like if project partner is going to a village and trying to improve that, take care of the community, what kind of problems they are facing. The problems are the opportunities. So can the students understand the community problems? Is there a way students can be taught, or students can understand how the community works, where the problems are, and if they can find a solution? So if any kind of project which is dealing with this kind of things, it is not like class education is there, on the side they are doing these kind of things. They are taking students there, trying to understand what the community is doing, what are their problems, and if students can be of help in those kind of areas. So, and if there is an instructor which is dividing students into several teams, and there is a leader of a team, and then they take care of one part of the education, say for example, the elderly care. So one team of 5 students will always look after what the villages, the elderly senior citizens, what problems they are facing, and if in the student level, what they can do to solve their problems. So that can be one team. The other team can see into the environment, village environment improvement. One team can see how to clean up the system, like cleaning up every week or every month, once a month. So this is like how to get students to understand the community, and on understanding the community, this is kind of an internship. We know that internships are very important for practical knowledge, but students cannot get internship in companies, and there are not enough companies to give internships. So communities can be the internship, like analogous to a internship. So if I can go there, understand how the system works, and we try to find a solution, and through that solution, these things they will have in their mind, and then later on when they grow, hopefully they will develop something, some kind of a company or something, that, okay, when I was working there, I saw this problem. So I want to solve this problem. I find a company to do that in their own. I mean, it's not like a IT company or something. In their own ways, they can have like those kind of solutions, and that will give them the idea of how to earn money. So I think that is one important part which we should figure out, and then try to prioritize if we can find such kind of projects, and then try to fund them. And if those people are succeeding, then that story we tell to other people. This is how they are succeeding in doing this kind of things. So is it possible to replicate their idea, or maybe modify it and apply it to other places, to people? Hello? Hello?
Are there any more questions?
It's getting late, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I think let's talk offline, and then we can discuss about the next steps.
Yeah, I think that this is not going to be like, we cannot do everything together. It has to be like small stepwise process. And like if we think that you want to do something in this regard, we can just do it in steps.
All right. Thank you so much, Ajay, for